I had just turned 28 when I took a spontaneous trip to the mountains with a couple of old college friends. It was a last-minute plan, and we rented a small cabin off the beaten path to escape the grind of the city. The weather was cool, but nothing too extreme. The drive there was scenic, with winding roads lined by dense trees, but it was almost too quiet, like the mountains themselves were holding their breath. We arrived around dusk and unpacked, ready for a weekend of relaxation. The cabin was isolated, but it wasn't anything that made us nervous. There was a small town about 20 minutes away, and while the GPS signal was weak, we figured it wouldn't be much of a problem. That night, after dinner, we decided to go for a walk to explore the nearby woods as the air was crisp and fresh. It was dark by the time we decided to head back, and we were all joking around, not paying much attention to the path ahead. That's when I noticed it. A figure standing still by the side of the trail, nearly hidden by the shadow of the trees. At first I thought it was another hiker, maybe taking a break, but the longer I looked, the more I realized something was wrong. The figure was completely motionless, and they weren't even facing us. It was a woman, wearing an old-fashioned white dress. It seemed out of place considering how cold it was, and it was hard to make out her features because the shadows made her almost blend in with the trees. I felt an uneasy chill spread over me, but I tried to shake it off, assuming it was just a weird coincidence. Still, as we walked closer, I couldn't help but glance back. That's when I saw her turn, slowly and deliberately, her eyes locked on us from the distance. My friends didn't notice at first, but my heart was racing and I whispered, "We need to go back." We quickly made our way back to the cabin, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. The whole time I couldn't help but wonder who that woman was and why she was out there in the middle of nowhere. Later that evening, after we were inside the cabin, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. The wind had picked up and the trees outside were swaying, creaking in a way that felt almost unnatural. At around 2 a.m., I woke up to a sound I couldn't quite place. It was soft at first, like a rustling noise, but it was growing louder, closer. My heart skipped a beat when I heard a knock on the door. I froze, my blood running cold. Who would be out there at this hour? The knock came again, persistent. I quietly got up and peered through the window, but there was nothing. The woods were empty. I told myself it was probably an animal or a figment of my imagination, but as I lay back down, the feeling of unease crept in like an invisible weight pressing on my chest. I finally fell back asleep, but the rest of the weekend felt strange. The vibe in the cabin was off, and none of us could shake the feeling that we weren't alone. Each time we stepped outside, we'd catch glimpses of something moving just outside our field of vision, but when we turned, it was always gone. On the last night of our stay, I decided to go for one last walk alone to clear my head. The moon was full, casting long shadows across the path. That's when I heard it again, the unmistakable sound of footsteps behind me. I turned, expecting to see one of my friends, but no one was there. The footsteps stopped when I did. I was getting ready to head back when I caught sight of something or someone standing in the distance, just out of the reach of the moonlight. It was the woman again, standing there in the same white dress, eerily still. This time I didn't hesitate. I turned and sprinted back to the cabin, my heart pounding in my chest. When I finally made it inside, I slammed the door behind me, locking it with shaking hands. My friends were awake, looking at me with concern. The next day we left early, not speaking much, but all of us feeling the same dread. When we checked out, the caretaker of the cabin casually mentioned that there had been reports of strange figures in the woods over the years, people who disappeared or were never found. He spoke of rumors about a woman in a white dress who appeared to those who wandered too far off the beaten path. No one really knew for sure, but the air of mystery lingered with us long after we left. Even now, years later, I still wonder about the woman in the white dress. Was she real, or was she something else? Every time I see the woods or walk alone, I can't shake the feeling that someone's watching me, just waiting for me to wander too far.